Have you ever considered how the wind can both destroy and nurture? Today we're embarking on a poetic journey with Subramania Bharati's poignant poem, Wind. This fascinating piece of literature uses the wind as a metaphor to depict life's dualities. It explores how the same wind can cause destruction, yet also sow seeds of growth. Just like in life, it's about how we choose to perceive and respond to our circumstances. So, are you ready to uncover these layers of meaning? Let's delve into the poem stanza by stanza to better understand its profound message. The poem begins with a plea to the wind. As we delve into the first stanza of this evocative poem, we encounter the poet's personification of the wind. The wind in this context isn't just a natural phenomenon. The poet breathes life into it, attributing it with qualities and behaviors typically associated with a living entity. It's almost as if the wind is a character in the poet's narrative, a protagonist perhaps with its own will and agency. This stanza paints the wind as a destructive force. The poet describes how the wind shatters doors, scatters papers, and throws down books. Each verb used here, shatters, scatters, throws, underscores the violent nature of the wind. It's not a gentle breeze rustling through pages, but a tempest wreaking havoc. The poet's vivid imagery brings to life the chaos and destruction that the wind leaves in its wake. We also see the poet employing a literary device known as apostrophe. Now, don't let the term intimidate you. Apostrophe in literature is a figure of speech in which the speaker directly addresses an absent or imaginary person, or a personified abstraction. In this stanza, the poet talks directly to the wind, pleading, almost imploring, as if the wind could listen, understand, and even respond. This plea to the wind isn't a simple request, it's a desperate call, a cry for mercy. The poet begs the wind to come softly. It's as though the poet acknowledges the wind's power, but pleads for it to exercise restraint, to show mercy, to not unleash its full destructive potential. The first stanza in its entirety sets the stage for the rest of the poem. It introduces us to the wind as a powerful destructive force, establishing a tone that is both dramatic and intense. It gives us a glimpse into the poet's perception of the wind and sets the reader's expectations for the subsequent stanzas. As we continue our exploration, we'll delve deeper into the poet's relationship with the wind and how it evolves throughout the poem. But for now, we conclude with the understanding that this stanza sets the tone for the rest of the poem. Moving on to the second stanza, the poet continues his plea. As we delve deeper into the second stanza, we find the poet extending his plea to the wind, articulating the destructive power it possesses. This stanza is rife with imagery, painting a vivid picture of the catastrophic aftermath of a powerful windstorm. The poet describes houses crumbling under the force of the wind, a metaphor that encapsulates the powerful and destructive nature of the wind. But it's not just about physical destruction. The crumbling houses can also be seen as a symbol of the destruction of human hopes and dreams. The wind, in its raw, uncontrolled state, can wreak havoc on both the physical and the metaphysical. The theme of destruction is further emphasized through the poet's mention of the wind scattering the pages of the books. This scattering of pages could be interpreted as the disruption of knowledge and wisdom. It's a poignant representation of how chaos can displace order, how the relentless force of nature can disrupt even the most profound human endeavors. The poet's plea to the wind in this stanza is not just a plea for mercy, it's a plea for understanding, for compassion, for control. He acknowledges the wind's power, but he also implores it to be kinder, to be less destructive. This plea reflects the human desire for harmony and balance, our innate need to coexist with nature without being at its mercy. In this stanza, the poet also highlights the indiscriminate nature of the wind's destruction. It doesn't distinguish between the weak and the strong, the rich and the poor. It wreaks havoc equally, underscoring the universality of its impact. The second stanza of the poem Wind is a profound exploration of the destructive power of nature, but it's also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The poet's plea to the wind is a plea for survival, for resilience, for hope amidst chaos. The poet here uses vivid imagery to convey the destructive power of the wind. In the third stanza, we see a shift in the poet's plea. Having journeyed through the first two stanzas, we have now arrived at the third one. Here, the poet's voice takes on a different tone. Instead of simply acknowledging the destructive power of the wind, the poet starts to implore the wind for strength. It's an intriguing shift that adds a new layer to our understanding of the poem. Let's dive into the details. The poet implores the wind to come and crack his heart, a plea that's heavy with symbolism. You see, the heart is often associated with emotions, feelings, and the essence of a person's character. The poet is asking the wind, a symbol of adversity, to test his emotional strength. He wants to prove that he can withstand even the harshest of trials. But there's more. The poet also uses the symbol of a weak flame. He says, "Don't scatter the papers, don't throw down the books on the shelf." He's referring to the wind's ability to extinguish a weak flame, a metaphor for the challenges that could snuff out our ambitions, our dreams, our plans. It's a powerful imagery that reminds us of the fragility of our aspirations in the face of adversity. Yet the poet doesn't stop at simply acknowledging this potential for destruction. Instead, he transforms it into a call to action. He asks the wind to make him stronger, to harden him against the trials that he knows will come. It's a plea for resilience, for the ability to keep the flame burning even when the winds are strong. And so, the third stanza turns the destructive power of the wind into a tool for personal growth. It's a shift from the external to the internal, from the physical to the emotional. It's about finding strength in adversity, about harnessing the destructive power of the wind to forge a stronger self. This stanza introduces the theme of resilience in the face of adversity. In the final stanza, the poet presents an intriguing perspective. Here, the poet, acknowledging the wind's destructive power, accepts it as a facet of life. He doesn't wish for the wind to stop blowing altogether. Instead, he asks it to blow gently, accepting the possibility of destruction, yet seeking a degree of mercy from this elemental force. This is where the theme of personal growth through hardship enters the poem. The poet realizes that the wind's force, while destructive, is also a catalyst for change and improvement. He does not shy away from the wind's power, rather, he embraces it, understanding that hardship often leads to growth. The poet uses the metaphor of a flame to illustrate this. He talks about a flame that doesn't go out in a storm but instead burns brighter, symbolizing strength in adversity. He shows us that when faced with mighty winds, we can either give in and extinguish or stand tall and burn brighter, just like the flame. The poet also uses the imagery of a weak fire that needs to be fed, a metaphor for those of us who may feel small or weak. He suggests that these winds of life, while challenging, can also feed our inner fires, making us stronger and more resilient. Finally, the poet uses the analogy of winnowing, a process of separating grain from chaff. The wind in this context represents life's trials that help us separate the essential from the non-essential, the valuable from the worthless in our lives. The fourth stanza, therefore, is a call to resilience, a plea to the wind and, by extension, to life, to give us the strength to endure and grow. It's a testament to the poet's understanding of the world, a world where destruction and creation go hand in hand, where hardships are opportunities for growth, and where the wind, while fierce, is also a friend. The poet concludes his plea with a powerful message of resilience and personal growth. Now that we've explored each stanza, let's summarize the poem Wind. This poem, penned by Subramania Bharati, is a profound exploration of the dual nature of the wind, serving as both a destructive force and a catalyst for change. Through each stanza, we've journeyed through the tumultuous landscapes shaped by the wind, witnessing its power to both create and destroy. In the beginning, the wind is depicted as a destructive entity, a force that wreaks havoc and leaves a trail of destruction in its wake. However, as we progress through the poem, we start to see another side of the wind. It's not merely a destructive force, but also a symbol of resilience. It's a challenge that invites us to stand firm, to build stronger homes and hearts, and to grow stronger in the face of adversity. The poem employs several literary devices to convey these themes. We've seen the use of personification, where the wind is given human attributes, and the use of metaphor, where the wind's destructive power is compared to our personal challenges. We've also noted the use of repetition to emphasize the wind's persistent nature and the power of resilience. In the end, wind teaches us that hardship can be a catalyst for growth, a message that resonates with us all. It encourages us to confront our challenges head-on and harness them as opportunities for personal growth and development.